This is a story from when my mother was a young girl in Germany. On this particular December, the ground was covered with snow and the sound of carols filled the air. The villagers of Ramsau, a small German village, were preparing for the upcoming holidays. Some of the villagers were full of joy, awaiting the presents and delicious dishes they were going to prepare, while some people were full of fear. Many years have passed since the incident on the 5th of December. When my mom was a little girl, her parents always talked about Saint Nicholas and his counterpart, Krampus. In her village, there was a girl named Frida. She was a blonde girl with eyes as blue as the sky and a lovable personality. All the children, including Frida, were told from a very young age to respect the traditions and to behave well. Frida didn't believe in Santa Claus or Krampus. What she did believe in was doing whatever she wanted to do whenever she wanted to do so. It wasn't a secret that Frida was a reckless child. She stole candies and beat the other kids in her class. And unfortunately, she didn't foresee the events that were about to follow when the Krampusnacht came upon Ramsau in the year 1968. For her, it was just another successful day of bullying her peers. She ate her dinner and quickly went to bed. Frida couldn't fall asleep for some reason, so she stayed up late. The clock hit midnight. The lights in her room went off. Frida could hear the sound of a distant chain clanking, accompanied by bells. Her window suddenly broke open, and with it, a massive shadow slipped into her room. In the darkness, she could make out the figure of a person with horns on its head. Frida quickly realized that it wasn't her father playing tricks on her. It was Krampus. The goat-man abomination charged at her full speed and grabbed her. Her screams slowly muffled away when put inside Krampus's sack. Frida's dad rushed into her room with his hunting rifle. He stood paralyzed as the devil before him struck him with his whip and sent him down to the ground. While laughing, Krampus's wicked laugh woke up the neighbors, but Frida's screams woke up the entire village. A hunting party was quickly gathered. Together with their hunting dogs, they tracked down the evil beast into a cave unknown to most of Ramsau. There they saw a gruesome image. Skeletons were scattered along the path to the main chamber of the cave where Krampus dwelled. There they saw Frida. She was locked inside of a cage. In front of her was a boiling cauldron. The group of men ran in and attempted to save her, but alas, the lock was unbreakable. It didn't take long for Krampus to appear and wreak havoc. Frida's father begged Krampus to release his daughter, but the creature didn't listen. The group ran away in terror, leaving him and Frida alone with the devil's pawn. The flames under the giant pot started burning with mighty power. The cauldron started lifting off the ground. Her father screamed and said to take him instead. Then the devil himself appeared, agreeing with the terms that Frida's father was giving. She was freed for the price of her dad's soul. The last seconds of her father's life were of him smiling at his daughter while inside of the cage. Then, with the snap of Krampus's finger, Frida fell down, unconscious. The next day, Frida woke up in her bed. The window wasn't broken. She went downstairs to find her mother making breakfast. When Frida asked her mother where her father was, she turned around in confusion and said that she never had a father. Her mother's words weren't taken seriously for the next 8 years, but gradually she forgot about his existence and tried to be good. Her life went on without anything as dramatic as her encounter with Krampus. That was until she gave birth to her daughter, Ida. Ida grew up to be just like her mother, and just like any other child, she was mischievous from time to time. The holiday traditions grew old, with nobody to follow them. Children were disappearing, but no one believed in the legend of Krampus. They opted to believe that when a kid vanished from thin air, they were taken by wild animals. No one but Frida and a few other people, whose parents gave up their lives in order for them to be free, believed. Only those people kept their children at bay when the 5th of December came around. One year, Frida and Ida were enjoying their evening in front of the TV. The time was well beyond 12 o'clock. After being sure for another year that Krampus wouldn't take her child away, she took Ida to bed and then got ready herself. Frida's husband was off on a business trip in Hamburg, leaving the whole bed to herself. Suddenly, she could hear a weird sound inside of her head, almost like the sound of chains, which then transformed into a loud thud. Then another one, and another one. When she heard a scream, she finally opened her eyes. Frida rushed to her daughter's bedroom, only to find her fast asleep. The doorbell rang. Frida cautiously grabbed a knife from the kitchen and went to the door. She looked through the peephole. Nothing. She then cracked open the door. On the welcome mat, there was a steaming piece of coal. It had a ribbon tied around it. She picked it up and stared at it in confusion. Then the memory struck her. Frida threw the coal to the ground and sprinted upstairs. To her misfortune, she was late. The bed was empty. Mutter, was ist los? She turned around. Ida was at the door, holding a glass of water. Frida sighed in relief, but it was at that little moment she'd regret for the rest of her life. As Ida was approaching her crying mother, a pair of long and muscled arms with large claws grabbed her from behind. Ida screamed and her glass of water fell to the ground. Frida looked up and saw him, with a huge grin on his face, stuffing Ida into his sack. Krampus. Frida screamed at Krampus while lunging the large kitchen knife into him, but it didn't affect him at all. He looked down at her and smiled with his bloody teeth. Krampus pulled out a note from the sack on his back and placed it in her hands. I will take everything from you. Only death can save you from the sleepless nights and the loss of the ones you love. Crying, Frida fell to her knees and begged Krampus to spare her daughter's life and to take her instead. He looked at her and smiled even bigger while saying,
Wie der Vater, so die Tochter. Deine Schulden werden jetzt bezahlt.
He released Ida in exchange for her mother. Ida looked at her while tears rolled down her face. Frida simply smiled before being put inside Krampus's sack. Ida ran to Krampus, but before she could grab her mother, Krampus laughed, and with the snap of his finger, Ida fell down, unconscious. My mother would tell me this story every December, but this year she looked at me as tears rolled down her face and revealed my family secret.
Vergiss deine Oma Frida nicht, meine Tochter. Sei ein gutes Mädchen.
Krampus is real.